We're on page 129, the Maamar Nasa Na alias Katana. We learned it years ago, but it's worth repeating and explaining a little more in depth. Let me give you background to this Maamar. This Maamar was said in 1931 in a city in Lithuania called Rakshiki, not far from Vilna. And there were Lubavitcher Hasidim in this city. In fact, the Rav in this city for many years was a very prominent, famous Chabad Chassid who made his way to America in 1938. His name was Rabbi Shmuel Levitin. And he was the senior Chassid in Crown Heights from then till his passing in 1974. He has a son who's the head shliach to the state of Washington. He's been in Seattle, Washington from the early 70s. His name is Rabbi Sholem Ber Levitin. And this is his grandfather, who was the Rav in Rakshiki. Now, this entire... Yes.
This is his son? I'm sorry, the Levitin who's in Washington. This is his father or his grandfather?
This is his grandfather.
So who was his father?
His father was Rabbi Binyamin Levitin, who's already passed on. This Rabbi Shmuel Levitin was born in 1883. He is said to have been the first name given after the passing of the Rebbe Marash in 1882. Rebbe Marash's name was Shmuel, and shortly thereafter, the father of the Shmuel Levitin, his name was Reb Zevuv Levitin, gave him a name. So he was gifted, I believe, a picture of the Rebbe Marash. There's only one. Well, for years there had been only one picture that we were told there existed of the Rebbe Marash, but because the picture has his face with boils and it doesn't look very he doesn't look very healthy, they never publicized the picture. But there was a picture. In fact, the Rebbe mentioned it out of Fabrengen that there is a picture of the Rebbe Marash. In my book Chabad Portraits, Volume 2, when I talk about the Rebbe Marash, at the beginning of the chapter, I published a picture of the Rebbe Marash that was printed in the Hamavaser newspaper in Yerushalayim about 15 or so years ago. And the story is that one of the Rebbe Marash's daughter married someone named Ginsburg. That was the last name. And a great grandson of this Ginsburg gave this picture over, and he said that he got it in the family. It was Mekubal that this is a picture of the Rebbe Marash. I then republished it in my book. I asked the librarian of Chabad, Rabbi Sholem Ber Levin, if he could authenticate the picture. He said he cannot. The picture seems to be very much the face of the previous Rebbe. However, the picture looks to be a picture of a drawing of an artist. It doesn't look like an original picture of his face, without the artist kind of adding to the picture. Now, we do know that our Rebbe would repeat many times a story that when the previous Rebbe was in Eretz Yisrael in 1929, when he visited, a Jew came to see him, and when he came to see him, he broke out, crying, and he said, Parchozhe. Parchozhe is a Russian word that means you're a spitting image of your grandfather. And whenever the Rebbe mentioned this story, he broke down in tears. I don't think there was ever a time that he said the story without breaking down, either choking up for what it touched him very... So we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe It looked like his grandfather. And if you look at the picture that I printed in Chabad Portraits Volume 2, you will see that he's very similar to the way the previous Rebbe looks. Anyway, this is an aside, and we have to go further. I just told you this because after the Rebbe Marash passed away, the first one to get a name after the Marash was Reb Shmuel Witten. And this Reb Shmuel Witten, part of the time, while he was in Russia, while he was in Europe, he was a Rav in Rakshik. Okay? This tells us that Rakshik, although was near Vilna, and Vilna was the bastion of the Litvische movement, headed by such Yidden as Reb Chaim Oizer Grudzdonsky. And Reb Chaim Oizer, although a very good friend of the Frierdiker Rebbe, he was a Litvak. He was a Litva. He wasn't a Chassid. And he had a Bezdin. And there was very much, they called it the Yerushalayim of Europe was Vilna. And there were Chassidim. In fact, there was a Lubavitcher Shtibel there. And later there was a Lubavitcher Yeshiva there. But nevertheless, the mainstay of Vilna were Litvische. After the Rebbe came back from America in 1930, I've been telling you that I just finished a book on the previous Rebbe's year, from September of 1929 till July 16th of 1930. The Rebbe was in America, and he visited Philadelphia and Baltimore, S. Louis, Chicago, and many cities. And then when he came back, the purpose of one of the purposes of his travels, besides raising funds for his brethren in Russia and strengthening Yiddishkeit by American Jews, was to see if he could make a permanent change and move to the United States. The people in Chicago in particular really wanted the Rebbe to come. The people in New York wanted him to come. Just yesterday I read that the people in the South Bronx, the Bronx was full of Yidden and Shtiblach and Shuls. Can someone take off? Avi, mute yourself. Send him a note. Please send him a note.
It's like to mute everybody. There's a way to do it.
How do I do it? Now you can hear me or you can't hear me? No.
Go where the mic is, where it says mute. You have to do it. The person you go into it, and then you can just do it. Everybody.
It says.
Should say it's by
select a speaker.
Yeah. No, that's like the figure. No. You say use a microphone. Like there should be for everybody's microphone or something.
Microphone.
There should be.
It says.
It should say mute for everybody or mute just for me.
Same as system. Moshe, send him a note to please. Oh, he did it. Thank the Lord. Okay. Wow. That was worse than Gehenna. He's back. Oh my gosh. What happened? I spoke too quickly. Avi, mute yourself. Okay. Anyway, so the Rebbe.
Avi, are you okay, Avi? Sounds It's like...
Could you call him, Moshe? Could you call him? This is getting absurd.
He's quiet now. But regardless, he's quiet.
Okay. So, the bottom line is that after the Rebbe came back from America and he decided he's not ready to move yet to America.
He's gonna mute in a second. He just got home.
Thank you.
Rabbi Dolphin, we can't hear you. I think you muted.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Okay,
so
great.
after the Rebbe came back from America, he decided he's not ready to move to America because the people there are not ready for him. And there are different ways of spinning it and explaining it. The bottom line is that although he had a very serious thought, he even wrote letters, his secretaries wrote letters. This is 1930. But in 1930-31, after he returned, he wrote that he's not coming. Hasidim didn't see the Rebbe, especially since he was imprisoned in 1927. And it was during Stalin's times. It was very difficult, and they wanted to see him. So they asked him to come to them. You know, the people didn't have the funds, you know, and the Rebbe conceded. And the Rebbe made a trip to different cities in Lithuania, actually to one city at this time, Rakshik, which was the city that he chose to accommodate the people from Vilna, the Hasidim from Vilna, Lukács, Postov. These are different cities nearby. In fact, we learned the Maamar earlier.
How were there Lubavitchers in Litva? Litvak? Like, where did they come from?
They came from they were there before the Litvaks, because the Tzemach Tzedek had 100,000 Hasidim. In the 1850s, in the 1840s and 50s, the Tzemach Tzedek was the king of Russia and Europe and Lithuania. He had Hasidim all over, and then because he had 6 sons, and they traveled, and they made Hasidim. There were Lubavitchers all over. Understandably, in Vilna, the bulk were Litvaks, but there was a nice amount of Hasidim. And in the smaller shtetl, like Rakshik was, what I was told is Rakshik had more Hasidim than Litvaks. In other words, you know, it's like you move to a neighborhood. Now, sometimes you move because you want to be next to a certain rabbi, next to school, a certain school, next to shul, right? For whatever. The same thing then. And then if in that time too, people married. It wasn't the only Lubavitch. The people, the Litvische and the Lubavitchers married each other. It was very common. This even spilled over. I knew such people. I knew this hardcore Litvak from Mir, whose wife was from a Lubavitch home, and his kids his sons became Lubavitchers. His daughters not. You had that. In fact, there's someone in New Haven whose father came from a city, Kurnitz, which also I don't think is far from Vilna, and he said that the Litvische and the Lubavitchers had more in common that they had with the Hasidim, the Polish and the Hungarians. The the Polish and the Hungarians were further away in culture between the Litvische and the Lubavitch. They basically were the same. Even the way their Havara, you know, a real Litvak says the Yiddish just like a Lubavitcher. Is Gadol v'Yiskada Shmei Rabba. I mean, there are a nuanced difference, but pretty much it's not. Is Gadol v'Yiskada Shmei Rabu. V'yoma divrach riyusai v'yamlich malchusai v'yatzmach purkonai v'kurai v'mashichai. or I'll kill him. I'll kulam. So the Lubavitch says Kodesh. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. And maybe a Litvak will say Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. So both in the verbal use expressions and the way they spoke, and they went to the same groceries and to the same places. In fact, why did the Frierdiker Rebbe encourage his Hasidim to open Lubavitch yeshivas in the various places, in Lita and in other places? Because kids from his Hasidim were learning over there, and they weren't learning Hasidus. It was very difficult to travel. In fact, this Rabbi Shmuel Levitin Moshe, he had a son who they said was like the most gifted. He had many kids. And where did he learn? In Telz. 1936, 37, 38, he was in Telz. And I found out, and I wrote about this in my book on Telz, there was a whole group, a Chabura of Lubavitchers in Telz. Why? Travel was very difficult. Telz was a Musar-like yeshiva. It had some similarities to Chabad, some. And more importantly, its leadership was very favorable at the time with Lubavitch. And the Frierdiker Rebbe and Gutnick, you heard of the family named Gutnick? Yossel Gutnick of Australia, the philanthropist, his father, Reb Shneir Zalman. The Frierdiker Rebbe told his mother, whose husband passed away young, she asked, where should I send my son? She said to Telz. Why? Because they learn Musar. It's very good that he's learning, he'll get the Yiddish Shemayim. Later he'll get the Hasidus. And he joined the Hasidus, the Chabura of Hasidus as well later. My point is that there was a togetherness between the Litvische and Lubavitchers. So this answers your question, or Leona's question, how to, in many of these cities, it wasn't 100 years before, during the time of the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, that Chassidim and Misnagdim were fighting, and it was terrible. That passed. From the Tzemach Tzedek's time on, it slowly dissipated. And that's because in 1843, Reb Yitzchok Volozhin, known as Reb Itchele Volozhiner, the son of Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who was the prodigy student of the Vilna Gaon, he went together with the Tzemach Tzedek to Petersburg to stand up for Yiddishkeit, a famous conference in 1843 in Petersburg. Who went together hand in hand? Reb Itchele Volozhiner and the Tzemach Tzedek. So that broke the barrier. And so you could say from 1843 and on, it really, not going to say at all, there were some hardcore Misnagdim who remained that way, but by and large, the average person, the man on the street, didn't have that feeling. So the Hasidim, but they weren't the ones who invited the Rebbe to come to Rakshik. Who invited the Rebbe to come to Rakshik were his Hasidim, who had a shtibel, and they wanted to see him and hear him. So he came. This is in 1931. So at this point, it seems to me that the Rebbe, although his stationery, which said Riga, because after he was forced out of Russia, it said Zmani. Zmani means temporary. The Rebbe never intended on staying in Riga, and that's understandable. Riga is Latvia. Riga has more of the Yekische, Torah and Derech Eretz approach. That's not Litvish, and that's not Chassidish. It's something for itself. So a real Litvak and a real Chassid, it's not their home. You do the best, and they did the best. But Lita had its own culture. Latvia had its own culture. Torah and Derech Eretz. So on the stationery, it says Mani. The Rebbe never intended on staying there. After he sees that America is not ready for him, and he's not ready to go to America, Where should he go? So he starts thinking about Poland, because Poland, Warsaw, became known as the capital where Yiddishkeit was thriving, where it was a cosmopolitan. And that's why Taka, in 1933, he moved to Warsaw. So this Maamar is still 31, where he's addressing the Jews in Rakshik and in Lita. So you'll find here, not in here, but we do have the talks that the Rebbe gave. He was there for 9 days in Adar. Yeah. He was there for 9 days, and he spoke, listen to this. Wait. He spoke to men, he spoke to women. He spoke to the modern Orthodox, that you would call, you know. Everyone wanted to hear from the tzaddik. There was a yeshiva called Yavne. It was more on the modern side. They came, they said, we want you to come and speak to our students. Older students, younger students. Tferes Bachurim was the group of students who went to... What? Go ahead.
No, we just lost your sound, but it came back on.
Yeah, Tferes Bachurim was the group of students that either went to college or worked, and at night they would come to study for several hours. It was something the previous Rebbe had set up years before called Tferes Bachurim. They came. They weren't all the Babbiches, just Yidden. Students. Working class. So, from all sides they came out. Yes, Moshe, you wanted to say something. Moshe.
I just want to ask again, I just want to clarify. When you say again, during this time period, the Rebbe was, again, I'm sorry, he was based in...
Riga, Latvia.
Okay. But Rakshi, we said, is in Lithuania.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Right. After he came back to the United States, he went to his temporary home, which lasted from 1927 to 1933. That's 5 to 6 years. It was, but the entire time he was hoping to move to a settled place where we would have more people who were interested in Hasidus. So he thought he would find it in America, and it was a good try, but he concluded not ready yet. So then he goes back to Riga. This is 31, because in 1930 he was in America. In 31 he's back, and then in 33 he finally moves over because there wasn't funding, whatever. There wasn't. Right away when he came back already in 31, he wanted to go to Poland, to Warsaw, but there wasn't money for it. Yes.
So 1933, that's when he went to Warsaw.
Yeah, I think the end of 33, something like that. Right.
I just asked before, 1927, we know that's when he was arrested. He was put in prison. When he got out of prison, he then, how long after, where was he then?
The next day, he had to go.
Oh, go where?
He went from Leningrad. He was imprisoned in Petersburg, but he lived in Leningrad, right? And then the next day, out. You can't be here. This is all written up, by the way, in detail, but basically, I don't know if the next day, the next week, right away, out. In other words, they said to him, you're lucky you're alive, get out of here. That was the attitude. So, it's with this background. So, when he's saying this Maamar, now how many Maamarim did he say in Rakshik during those 9 days? 4. That's a lot. 4 Maamarim of Hasidus. And this is the 4th one. On Thursday, this is the day I think that he left in the evening, or the next day, Friday, he left back to Riga. He said this Maamar, and this Maamar, in a way, addresses what a Jew of any kind, from the most liberal, most modern, the most Hasidic, the most Litvish, how to serve Hashem. And he begins with the pasuk in Malachim chapter 2. Malachim 2, where it says over there a story. And the story briefly is that there was a woman who was known as Isha Hashunamis. We say this in the Haftorah of Parshas Vayera. right? Who was married to a person named Avadia. We said in Parshas Vayishlach this year, we read the entire Haftorah, which is the entire book of Avadia. It's a small sefer. Avadia was a very special person. He was a convert. What was special about him, besides that he was a convert? He loved Hashem, and he wouldn't stand for the fact that the king, Ochaz, and his evil wife, known as Zevuv, killed the Kohanim. Famous story in Tanakh. And she put them, I'm sorry, not the Kohanim, the Nevi'im. And a large amount of Nevi'im, prophets. And instead of the Nevi'im, she put Nevi'ei HaBaal, false prophets who worshipped the Baal, the idol. Avadia saw this, so he took a group of Kohanim and he hid them. But he needed to feed them. So he borrowed money he didn't have. He got money and he bought food and shelter. And all of a sudden he dies. After he dies, his wife was left with debts. She has to pay the people that her husband owed money to. She doesn't have money. So she comes to the prophet, Elisha, right? And she says, help me. So he says, bring me your jug. So she brings him a little jug of oil. And then he says the famous words, Kalim reikim al tamiti. Small amount of vessels you should not have. You got to have large vessels. And he tells her to go home and bring any type of vessel that they have and to go down to the water, and they're going to start making noise, I think. Anyway, the bottom line is the vessels, he blessed the vessels, that all of a sudden she had a lot of oil and she was able to sell it and she was able to pay off the creditors. The Rebbe, as an aside note, used this phrase from that Haftarah, from this piece of Tanakh, to Rabbi Kunin in 1983, when he had $17 million in debt, literally, not figuratively. I was there in LA at the time. And he came to the Rebbe Sunday, and the Rebbe gave him a nickel. And then the Rebbe said to him, Kalim reikim al tamiti. I don't want small vessels, a little nickel. And a year or two later, after Weinberg, there was a wealthy person who owned the Kahlua Hilton in Hawaii, Hermine Weinberg. They came from Brooklyn. If you drive on Bay Parkway in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst, you'll see the JCC. It's a huge building. It's 100 years old, all solid rock, and it has the name Weinberg. It's this Weinberg. I knew someone who was related to this Weinberg, so I know about them. So they moved to California, very wealthy. He's married to Hermine. They end up in a big divorce. She becomes sick. Jerry Weintraub, the famous producer, Hollywood producer who became very close to Rabbi Kunin, tells Kunin, go visit her in the hospital. Kunin goes. A Jew is in the hospital. He becomes close to her. He goes several times. She dies, passes on, and she leaves over $120 million to 3 charities. 40 to Chabad, 40 to multiple sclerosis, and 40 to the Heart Association, or whatever. $40 million. Of course, her husband and sons contest the will. I was there during that whole period, and Rabbi Kunin had people fly to Hawaii to take stock of what they were. It was biggest lawyers. He's not going to let $40 million go. 2 years into the court case, he gets a call. We want to settle with you. How much? 21 million. He goes to his boss, the Rebbe. Should I settle? The Rebbe says, yes. He settles and walks away with $21 million. He drives with his Lubavitcher accountant, who was a friend of mine, Yoel Edelson, and they drive around L.A. with a checkbook, and Cunin writes out a check, $1 million, $5, $100, and from door to door, pays off everybody $17 million. He's left with $4 million. He gives the yeshiva one. He buys that property on Pico for the Chabad girls' school, and then a little bit this, and again he's out of money, and it starts again. But the Rebbe, it's a real story. This is not an exaggeration. It happened. The Rebbe told Cunin, before it happened, when he gave him the nickel, Kalim Reikim al Tamiti. The same posik that the Elisha told the Isha should not miss. And all of a sudden, her one jug of oil, which was so minute, blossomed, and she had enough to pay off everybody. That's one part of the Haftarah. The next part of the Haftarah is the story of her having a child, and the child dies. After she's blessed by Eliyahu to have the child, she didn't have a child, and then he performs Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. It's the second story that she says, you know, there's this gentleman who passes our house. He comes and goes and comes and goes. And she says, Ish Kadosh, he's a holy person. And since he's a holy person, let us make for him a room in our house, in the attic, with a separate wall, and let us put there a bed, a table, a chair, and a candelabra. Right? Like I have here in my little room. I have my bed, I have my little table, I have my chair, and I have my light. That's what I said to my son, also air conditioning, because it gets hot here. That's all I need. And of course I have a bathroom outside. That's all I need. I don't need more. Okay. So she calls this person Ish Kadosh. And she makes for him these 4 things. The Rebbe in this mimer, based on what it says in the Zohar, the Holy Zohar, on this verse, that these 4 items are the way to correct, to be misakin the name of Hashem that's in disrepair because of Golus. Every one of us has to fix the name of Hashem. So the Zohar HaKadosh says that the way to make this tikkun is through a table, a chair, a bed, table, chair, and a candelabra and a light. And the Rebbe then takes it from just a concept in the Zohar and explains it in Hasidic terms what this means, which is the avodah of Krishma Shalamita at night. What that means, I'm going to talk about it. It's very important. And Shachris and Mincha. And it's a fascinating and a very important mimer. In fact, it's so important they translated it in a book that Chabad gave out in the 70s called Challenge. I don't know if you've seen this book. One is with a green cover. It came out of England, London. And one is with a red cover. The one of green covers what Chabad does in England mostly, and the one with the red is what Chabad does and had done in the 70s, 60s and 70s in Eretz Yisrael. And in one of those volumes, they translated this mimer. So if you want to have an English translation, you could find it there. What time is it now?
About 3:15.
Yeah. What?
I just wanted to ask, we did a mimer that had a similar opening, that opened with an explanation.
And we're doing it again. Because
it's the same one?
It's the same one.
I don't have notes on this one, and I took notes.
So that's. I was going to give you a test, Hill, to see if you remembered it.
Yeah. Is it the same one or a different one?
The same one.
Same one. Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't have notes. So,
okay. So now write your notes.
I remember the opening.
Yeah. Yes, Yonason.
Yeah, Rabbi, you know which is the four names, the four letters of Hashem, UK, Vavke. Do you know which corresponds to which?
I don't, but we have to look up the Zohar, and I don't know what the Zohar is, but maybe in the Zohar over there it would say. So the answer is I don't know.
But I have the Zohar, my tofu, the dash.
Yeah.
And if you give me the reference, I'll be able to find it.
Well, the reference is, it says later, Zohar, Chelik Beis, look at the fourth line from the bottom, Hillel, Yonason. In middle of the line, Zohar, volume 2, page 103, folio 1.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I'm not sure, Yonason, if it says it corresponds to the, I should have not said that. I assume that it corresponds to the four letters of God's name. It might not, so you have to check there. But he does bring this over here. And I would be very appreciative to you if you actually looked it up and tell us what it says there, if it's corresponding to four letters of Hashem's name or something else. But I want to just end that in the Mefarshim, in Tanakh, how did she know, Yoni, that this fellow that's passing by is a holy guy? So Rashi says, because she saw that when he came in and she fed him, and it's hot, there were flies, and normally flies came into the house. Flies hovered over the food. And here he's eating, and there aren't any flies. So Rashi says that this was a sign to her that this guy is a holy man. That the flies don't want to disturb him. This is literally what Rashi says. I heard once a beautiful interpretation that's worth mentioning. The word in Hebrew for a fly is a Zevuv. Zevuv. Zayin Beis, Vav Beis, right? The word Zevuv is an acronym for Ze, Bezeh, Vi, Ze, Bezeh, which means this one like this, and that one like this. You know what that means? That means that most people, there are people that say, he is like this. And the other guy says, no, he is like this. In other words, even if a person has so many people that say nice things about him, comes along another person that says, no, he's not that nice. Zeh, bezeh, bezeh, bezeh. That's the acronym of the word Zevuv. She saw, Moshe, that there was no Zevuv. She saw that this person, everyone only has positive and nice things to say about him. Then she said, he's holy. If you find a person that everyone of different kinds of people, they all say only good, and they don't have something negative to say about him, that's a holy person. I love this. I heard it from my Rebbe who wrote it, Rabbi Bogomilsky, my principal. He wrote it in the book Vidibar Tabam. You might have it somewhere in probably Parshas Vayera in his explanation, volume 1 on Bereshis over there, and I love it because Rashi just says she didn't see a Zevuv. In this Maamar we'll have another insight into that, but practically, when you meet a person and everyone, only speaks positively about them, that's a great accomplishment. That's a great accomplishment. And if after 120 we leave this world and people only have positive to say about what we did on earth, we've left a great legacy. It's not easy. It's not easy because we are who we are, and we take positions, and we have to make tough decisions, and we rub people sometimes the wrong way, And listen, part of life is to stand up and make decisions, but there is a way of making a decision where someone can say, I disagree with him, but I respect him. He's a mensch about it. To expect everyone to agree with us is ridiculous. It's foolish. But even those that disagree, but still they respect him, that can be done. Very important. That can be done and should be done. Chevra, we'll continue tomorrow. I thank you for the time. And we'll learn inside with Abish's help. Abish should give gesund Leben. Gesund. I need to be healthy. I got a cold. You see in Florida, in New York, I didn't get a cold. Down here in Florida, where it's 85 degrees every day, I get a cold. How do you like that?